In that process of coaching people for the last 6 years, I've gained such interesting insight into the world of diabetes, things that were never taught to me as a nurse, as a healthcare provider, but a lot of the mental and emotional things that go along with how to live the lifestyle, being a partner to somebody living with type 1 diabetes. That's something that's a very powerful role. There's a lot of people out there who partners to somebody living with some form of diabetes. And that's a big, there's a lot of responsibility there. And I'd love to talk more about that.
Welcome to another episode of the Mastering Diabetes audio experience. Today, I am actually very excited to have two new contributors to the podcast. We have my wife, Kylie Buckner, and we have one of our master coaches, Lauren Plunkett. And it turns out that in 2024, we're going to be changing the way we do some things at Mastering Diabetes. There's a whole bunch of new content that we're going to be coming out with, and some new strategies that we're going to be evolving with. And one of them is that Kylie and Lauren are going to be in the podcast frequently. And the reason for that is because the two of them have so much experience in coaching people living with all forms of diabetes and so much information to be able to bring to the table that we felt compelled and obligated to make sure that they had a place and a voice within the Mastering Diabetes world. So Kylie, Lauren, how are you guys doing today?
Hi, so great. Happy 2024.
Happy 2024. It's a cold one for me. You guys are very tropical. I am very not. That should give us some good options for
Lauren, where are you
different
living?
things to talk about. I'm in Minnesota. I always think of it as the frozen Northland, and it certainly is.
Yeah.
How cold is it for you right now?
Oh, good question. It was, last I looked, it was -1. I think we're just above 1 now, but that's a really good question.
Wow.
A little bit of snow. Yes. And I'm preparing to go to Montana tonight. Oh, sorry. It's -11. It's a little off.
Extra one in there.
Hold on. I'm looking at the forecast for Montana because I'm flying out to Montana tonight. So in St. Paul, Minnesota, it's -1. And in Montana, where my parents live, it's -11.
Oh my gosh. Well, definitely a very different feel than where we are here in Florida. And hopefully one of these days we'll get you down here to thaw out a little bit.
It's funny because it's positive like 53 here and I'm freezing. So I can't even imagine what that feels like.
Yeah.
Get into the house. I would say the cold it's character building. It's character building, all 4 seasons. And I know it's been, when I used to live in Florida, it would be, there were some days that were 100-degree difference between my parents living in Minnesota and Florida. 100-degree difference.
Yeah.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
That's a big difference for sure. And yeah, it's funny, Lauren, like, as we've been getting to know each other better, one of the cool things is like we share there's a lot of things that we have in common. And one of them is our love of St. Petersburg, Florida, which is such a cool city. And so I'm glad that we have so much in common and things to share with each other in this whole Mastering Diabetes world. So yeah.
So let's start at the very top here. What do you guys plan on sharing with our audience in this year 2024? Why is it that you guys wanted to be part of the podcast? What are you bringing to the table that Robbie and I haven't already covered, and that you guys can help listeners really understand?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I've been part of the Mastering Diabetes universe for many, many years since it began, as a loving, caring, like caregiver of this company, of this business. And I've been a coach. I've been active in, the evolution of the coaching program. And that's been really, really exciting for me. And it really ties in a lot of my background in my nursing role. I've been a nurse since 2000. And, as a nurse, I really wanted to help people achieve wellness. And that's one of the things that I've been able to do as a coach with Mastering Diabetes. And in that process of coaching people for the last 6 years, I've gained such interesting insight into the world of diabetes, things that were never taught to me as a nurse, as a healthcare provider, things that I was never teaching patients in the traditional healthcare world. And not only the diabetes specific things, but a lot of the mental and emotional things that go along with living with type 1 diabetes or any form of diabetes, really. And that's something that I'm really excited to start to dive into, the lifestyle, how to live the lifestyle, things that work really well for people, just from my experience. And, and also being a partner to somebody living with type 1 diabetes. That's something that's it's a very powerful role. And I'd love to talk more about that role, because there's a lot of people out there who, are living with somebody or partners to somebody living with some form of diabetes. And that's a big, there's a lot of responsibility there. And I'd love to talk more about that. And so those are some things to look forward to from my point of view.
I love it. I love it. This is all really good. I mean, I've seen you, be able to take your nursing background and take it from a clinical place and bring it into the Mastering Diabetes world and be able to help real people virtually. And the results have been mind-boggling. The results have been silly. And so as a result of that, I'm like, I've seen you evolve as a coach. I've seen you evolve as a coach leader, and I've seen, the tremendous transformations. And so being able to like touch upon your clinical experience as well as your coaching experience, I think is a huge opportunity. Lauren, how about yourself?
I think that Kylie had an idea that's been brewing for quite some time. And that when we got to know each other a little bit more, Kylie was just like, okay, I might have a co-host here. And I think that as we got to talk, some things just sort of like felt very natural between she and I, and all the conversations we've had, just in the meetings we've had with coaching. And I have kind of an opposite timeline of Kylie, which is really interesting. So I hope the listeners get to realize here that there are female voices coming out of Mastering Diabetes now, which hasn't necessarily been the case, where there are success stories and there's female success stories and certain experiences. But now we have a little bit of a different take on this, when listeners can say, okay, now we're kind of curious about what's the female experience like in diabetes. And it isn't just type 1, but I can tell everyone I've had type 1 for 30 years. So I was diagnosed in 1993 when insulin was different, the language was different. We didn't have CGM technology. We didn't have insulin pumps, or there might have been one that was gigantic and no one was using them at the time. So things have changed so much, and I've been through that evolution. And I was about 15 years into type 1 when I discovered the magic and power of plants. And I didn't know there was any research. I didn't know there was Cyrus and Robbie. I didn't know there weren't. It was 2008. There was nothing out there. And everything for me was an accident. I thought I was a study of one. So like, I've figured out type 1. I've outsmarted the whole thing. All I had to do was eat more greens and fruit and put some, grains in my salad and things like this, where it was completely accidental. It just was very intuitive about, maybe I should eat more of the things that everyone says are healthy, because if it's healthy in general, it's probably healthy for diabetes. And whoops, I became super insulin sensitive pretty darn quick and had more energy than I knew what to do with. So hearing Kylie talk about her background, and then us getting to know each other and kind of blending my experiences in, is that I became a dietitian after this. I took myself back to school to find out, how am I getting healthier? Because nobody in the clinic knew why. Nobody was telling me what was going on, other than keep doing what you're doing because your A1C is dropping. So within that experience, one thing led to the next. I started meeting so many more people with diabetes and hearing more stories. And I thought, well, the tough time I had growing up wasn't just mine alone. A lot of people had a tough time growing up with diabetes. And why? Why are we all having tough experiences? And those tough experiences are exactly why we're sitting here right now. Like, that is why Mastering Diabetes was created. We needed an alternative. We needed something different. There was so much out there that we didn't know. And why was that research hiding? Where was it? Because it existed. And now we've gotten to know it. Now we've brought it forward. And now, within our own experiences and other people that we've met and coaches, we have so many stories banked in our minds between Kylie and I, that there are so many new topics I think that we can bring forward that can be fun and exciting. And the emotional side of diabetes is somewhere I tend to focus on a lot. The emotional depth of diabetes is pretty intense, and it's never gone. I'm never cured of the emotional intensity of type 1 diabetes, but I also teach indoor cycling classes, and that helps me relieve some of that intensity. And it also helps me continuously learn more about my body every single day. So I don't think there will be a dull moment between Kylie and I for Green Glow.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just it. We want to bring that green glow forward. We both are living these really vital, joyful lives with our lifestyle, with our lifestyle as the foundation. And I think that being able to share some of our personal experiences a little bit more, and also weave in those stories, like you were just talking about, the storytelling. There's so many incredible stories, and we've got, in addition to the stories of our own experience, we've got amazing coaches on our coaching team who, many people in the Mastering Diabetes podcast world haven't heard from before, and it would be really great to be able to bring those people forward, bring our coaches forward for them to tell stories as well. Yeah, just the idea of storytelling and telling these stories and bringing them to life, bringing the case studies that we have, the client experiences, and allowing our coaches to have a place to come and talk about their experience. We've got this whole amazing team of coaches that I've worked with for many years, and I love that they have such a breadth of experience, and they've got these incredible stories to tell, and about successes and challenges, and really diving into some of the struggles. It's not, while the success stories are amazing and we of course want to share those here, we also aren't afraid to talk about the challenges. And that's one of the things in Mastering Diabetes that I love in the coaching world, is that we're really troubleshooting. We're helping people in the moment. We're helping people navigate the challenges of lifestyle change. And when we start talking about the hard stuff, when we start talking about the deeper, the emotional connections to things like food, that's when this work gets really real and really good. And those are the types of things that, in my observation, may have been missing from the conversation.
No, you're absolutely right, because the emotional side of lifestyle transformation is real. It doesn't matter if you're living with diabetes or heart disease, or maybe you don't have any chronic condition, and you're literally just trying to change your habits. Mm-hmm. You're trying to go from eating one way to eating a different way, from exercising one way to exercising a different way, from sleeping one way to sleeping a different way, from stressing one way to not stressing, from alcohol to not alcohol, from smoking to not smoking, right? There's so many things that are changing, and all along the way, there's emotions that pop up. Right. And the emotions can sometimes be little road bumps, and you can kind of just navigate around them, and you can recognize them and just say, okay, it's no big deal. I'm feeling lonely right now, and normally I eat, so maybe I'm not going to do that. Or the emotions can become real big, and they can become showstoppers where you're like, wow, I have to talk about this. I have to bring this to the table, because there are some very powerful emotions inside of me, which are either getting in my way, or in the fact they're helping me navigate this process, right? So I'm really glad to be able to have you guys both here, because the emotional side of things is something that we don't do a very good job of talking about, because we're men, and men don't like talking about their emotions. But you guys could certainly help us really all understand what are the emotions and why are they important.
That's the great thing about it, is that even if you're someone who feels like you're not quite in touch with that sensitive part of diabetes, as coaches, it's part of our job to pull some of that out to the surface, because that helps people overcome some of the other things that they're seeing as evidence. So the clinical world of diabetes is moving very fast. Tech, right? Insulin tech, automation is a conversation that's just blossoming or blowing up really right now. And what we know, I think, as coaches and within the Mastering Diabetes, just the principles of what we see really helps people in the heart of what it is. It's the human factor that will never go away, no matter how fancy the automation is with CGMs or an app that tells you this and that, or you've got devices that say, here's your recovery score. You need to sleep 8 hours tonight. I mean, all these things that kind of go on, that no matter how much tech there is, we will still be here having conversations that really touch people, and are the things that people go, hold on, I do need to hear this again. I need the repetition. I need to hear this more. This really does help me, no matter how many devices I have in front of me.
I'm actually really glad to hear you say that, because the devices, I think, have become a little bit overwhelming. It's sort of the beginning of the CGM era, I would say. But that being said, there's a lot of people who have the mindset that, oh, everything's okay because I have this CGM on me. As long as I have a continuous glucose readout that's telling me what my glucose values are, then it gives me the permission to be able to eat whatever I want, to be able to do whatever I want. And it's almost like a get out of jail for free card. But in reality, it's just a thing that's giving you information, right? The lifestyle change process is still necessary if you want to reduce your overall chronic disease burden now and into the future. But I think what I am observing and what I fear is going to continue to grow over the course of time is that people are going to become more and more reliant on devices, apps on their phone, CGMs, insulin pumps that can talk to their CGMs. Maybe there's other devices that will come out. And people will start to feel like, as long as I'm this sort of like pseudo bionic man and I have these things hooked up to me and I got a patch on my shoulder and another thing in my abdomen and an app on my phone, that I'm cool, I'm being monitored, everything's fine. But in reality, that may not actually be the case.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best parts of our role is helping people interpret CGM data and use the information. I think wearing the device can be incredibly valuable and eye-opening for so many reasons. And it really does provide great insight into the effects of activity, whether it's food or exercise, on your blood glucose. But one of the things that, having that data is really valuable. And so is learning what to do with that information. And that's one of the things that, I really love in the coaching role and in working with people individually is how do we use that data to inform our decisions and make connections between activity and outcome, activity and level, blood glucose readings. And, Lauren, I'm sure, you can speak very detailed, much in so much detail about this topic because you wear a CGM yourself and can understand that and can see the changes. But this is definitely a topic on our list, technology in diabetes care and where is it going and how can we use it to our advantage in terms of incorporating these lifestyle changes to understand our level of insulin resistance and as it improves insulin sensitivity.
Yeah, that alone will be one of our topics. I think something that will come up repeatedly is we want to be careful that we don't live by the numbers, that the numbers don't tell us who we are as people. We use the numbers to live better. We don't let the numbers dictate who we are as human beings. And something you said reminded me of when I was growing up, my dad, and I'll probably bring up my dad a lot. He's a significant part of my story. But my dad said to me every single day before I left the house for school, make good decisions and come home smarter. He still does it to me today if he can. But that was something that was clear to me. It was good decision making. And that's the thing about tech or diabetes in itself. It's what kind of decisions are we going to make today? Are they going to help me or not? So let's make the decisions that help. And if they don't, that's okay too. We're going to work our way through that. That's a part of self-coaching, inner dialogue, positive self-care and self-talk. And those are, all the things that we are totally going to get into.
So, one of the funny things that you brought up earlier is that you became insulin sensitive by accident, right? And that's actually fascinating because I also feel that way to a certain extent. When I changed my lifestyle back in the year 2003, I also became rapidly insulin sensitive. And I had a feeling that it was going to work, but it worked 10x better than I thought it was actually going to work. And then I actually ended up putting myself back to school similarly to you so that I could go learn this science of why it was happening. Right. And so I tell myself like, oh, whoops, this happened by accident, kind of by accident. And the truth is that what you were doing and what I was doing is exactly that. We were making the best decisions that we could make at that time. And we were coming home with a little bit more knowledge. We were getting a little bit smarter. And now we had to figure out like, well, wait a minute. Wait, why is this working? Hold on a second. Let me go backwards and try and figure out like, is there research about this? Or am I just like some random freak of nature that happens to be very insulin sensitive? And maybe there's no research about it. So it's kind of interesting that like you were following your dad's advice and you maybe didn't even know it at the time and you magically became very insulin sensitive.
Yeah, freak of nature. I think I was willing to accept that because up until that point, my life was just like, what now? Like, how hard is this going to be? Is this going to make any sense or not? And what's so interesting is sometimes when you look at your own timeline, you trace things back to why am I learning what I'm learning right now? What kind of a lesson is in my face in this moment? We're always dealing with stuff like that. And within my first semester, I went to a conference. Somebody was speaking. It was sort of plant-based related. And lo and behold, I ended up sitting next to someone who became my mentor. And she was a dietitian and a diabetes educator who had gone into the plant-based lifestyle a few years earlier on her own choice. She did not have diabetes. And she sat down next to me. I had a plate full of carbohydrates, but it was a plate full of fiber. And I was going to eat all of that, and I wasn't going to feel bad about it because I knew what that food was doing for me. And when she sat down next to me and said, I'm a diabetes educator, I thought, here comes the lecture. She's going to look at my plate and say, what's with all the carbs? And she actually said, I know what's happening to you. Well, actually, as this let me prompt this by saying, I told her, eating this way is really helping me, and I'm here to find out why, because I don't understand it. And she said, I know why you're more insulin sensitive. It's because of the fiber. And she could have blown me out of my chair. I had no idea exactly what she was talking about. I had heard of this fiber thing growing up somewhat, but not so clinically. And she pretty much dropped a stack of research on me within the next month or two. And that's when I started to get kind of enlightened in the clinical world that, wow, this is a thing. How come I don't know about it? How come I never knew? And that was it. That was kind of the beginning of the greater picture of how I got here.
Okay, I think the key word that you just said there is science, right? You went through a process to learn the science intentionally, and you took that science and you mixed it in with your own personal experience. And you personalize the whole process to say, okay, well, this is what the research world knows. This is what Lauren knows. And now I can make sense of it because, yes, I have experienced this. This was my, this was my personal experience. And this is how it relates specifically to what the scientific world has discovered. And that's really the key, because what you're doing is you're taking, rigorous evidence-based science, and you're saying, how does this relate to me? That's ultimately what most people care about, right? That's what I cared about. That's what you cared about. That's what Kylie cares about. That's what every single person who's going through this process cares about, right? How does this work for me, right? So if you like science, and we are huge fans of science here at Mastering Diabetes, and we have a free training that is 100% science-based, which is going to be starting in the middle of February, and it has a weight loss focus. Okay, so if you are interested in losing weight, and if you want to not only just lose weight, but actually keep that weight off permanently, which is a problem that I see in the weight loss industry. Lots of people lose weight, and there's a lot of marketing about how you can get 20 pounds off of you in the next 30 days and how you can fit into your bikini in the middle of the summer. But there's very little messaging about how you can lose weight and keep it off permanently. We're going to teach you that. And we are sticklers for making sure that people understand how they can make changes in their lifestyle today that will eventually become permanent lifestyle transitions, so that they can get off of this yo-yo weight gain, weight loss bandwagon and continue to get frustrated. So if you care about weight loss and you're trying to use that as a tool to feel better, to look better, to maybe reduce your glucose and to improve your chronic disease risk, then get on our email list. Go to masteringdiabetes.org. There's plenty of places where you can click a button and then you can give us your email. Once you're on our email list, we will then give you access to the free training, which is going to be happening sometime in the middle of February. Okay. I really want you guys to participate in this because it's going to be a very powerful event. And hopefully you'll get some epiphanies and some breakthroughs that will help you really understand how you can personalize this weight loss science, apply it to your life, and actually get a lot of value out of it today and into the future. You guys got anything else you want to add to this?
I mean, I'm just super excited for this year and to start off the new year with some new content. So if, you're looking for something new, Lauren and I will be here to, share. And I'm really excited about that for this year. So
I'm very excited to have both of you guys here on the podcast today and into the future. So let's have some fun with this. And thank you guys in advance.
Our pleasure.
Yay. Thank you. Let it rip.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.
Bye.